certificate, as accidents are one of the leading causes of death in the country. The conference will commence on the 27th of this very month to the 30th. And finally, on the local scene, the Assistant Bishop of Kampala Diocese, the Right Reverend Huntington Mutebi, has appealed to religious leaders to heighten the campaign against sin that is on the increase in the country. Bishop Mutebi was speaking to the clergy during the ordination of 5 deacons of the Diocese of Kigezi at Rugarama Cathedral in Kabale Municipality. The Assistant Bishop of Kampala Diocese, the Right Reverend Huntington Mutebi, asked religious leaders to participate in the campaign against corruption and all forms of injustice in the country. Mutebi was officiating at the ordination of 5 deacons and also urged the people of Kabale to ensure they are God-loving. State Minister for Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, David Bahati, said religious leaders need to be supported and encouraged to do God's work. He, however, wondered why corruption remains rampant in the country despite the majority being Christians. The Bishop of Changungu Diocese in Rwanda, the Right Reverend Francis Karemera, said corruption, conflicts and other related vices can be defeated through renewed commitment to the service of God. The host bishop, the Right Reverend Engineer George Bagamuhanda, prayed that the ordained deacons be honest and committed to the service of God's people.
And away from that, moving on to the international scene, Colombia reports 52 activists killed already this year. Now, a total of 52 Colombian human leaders have been killed in the first 3 months of this year, according to what authorities say. It is a significant increase from 2021, which saw 145 murders all year. Most of the victims are targeted because they clash with the interests of illegal armed groups, including drug trafficking gangs, according to Colombia's Human Rights Ombudsman. The country is one of the world's most dangerous for activists. This is what the monitors say. Now, the victims include 28 land rights and community rights activists, 9 indigenous activists, and 4 farming activists, Colombian newspaper El Tiempo reports. Of the victims, 48 were men and 4 were women. One of the most shocking cases was that of Brainer David Kukuneme, a 14-year-old indigenous activist who was shot dead in January while on patrol with an unarmed group that seeks to protect indigenous lands. Colombia is officially at peace after signing a deal with the largest rebel group, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, in 2016. But other armed gangs continue to operate in the country, the world's largest cocaine producer. Violence started increasing towards the end of last year due to disputes over territory and resources involving dissident FARC rebels and members of another Marxist guerrilla group, the National Liberation Army, as well as right-wing paramilitary groups and criminal gangs such as the Gulf Clan. And moving on to Gaza, Gaza farmer finds 4,500-year-old statue of Canaanite goddess. A stone statue of an ancient goddess of beauty, love and war has been found in the Gaza Strip. Palestinian archaeologists say that the head of the Canaanite deity Anat dates back 4,500 years to the late Bronze Age. The discovery was made by a farmer digging his land in Khan Yunis in the south of the Strip. On social media, some Gazans are making wry comments suggesting the goddess's association with war seems apt. In recent years, they have seen a series of devastating flare-ups in the conflict between Israel and militant groups in Gaza, which is governed by Hamas. However, the discovery of this limestone statue is a reminder of how the Strip, part of an important originally a Canaanite settlement. The 22-centimeter high carving clearly shows the face of the goddess wearing a serpent crown. We found it by chance. It was muddy and we washed it with water, said farmer Nidal Abu Eid, who came across the head while cultivating his field. We realized that it was a precious thing, but we did not know it was of such great archaeological value, he told the BBC. We thank God and we are proud that it stayed in our land in Palestine since the Canaanite times. The statue of Anat, one of the best-known Canaanite deities, is now on display in Kars al-Basha, a historic building that serves as one of Gaza's few museums. And moving on to the U.S., Vice President Kamala Harris tested positive for COVID-19 on Tuesday after returning from a week-long trip to California. Today, I tested positive for COVID-19. I have no symptoms and I will continue to isolate and follow CDC guidelines. I'm grateful to be both vaccinated and boosted, Harris tweeted on Tuesday afternoon. Kirsten Allen, the Vice President Press Secretary, said in an earlier statement that Harris tested positive for COVID-19 on rapid and PCR tests. Harris will isolate and continue to work from the Vice President's residence, according to what Allen said. She has not been a close contact to the President or First Lady due to their respective recent travel schedules. She will follow CDC guidelines and the advice of her physicians. The Vice President will also return to the White House when she tests negative, she added. Harris had been scheduled to receive her intelligence briefing at 10:15 a.m. on Tuesday at the White House alongside President Joe Biden, according to daily guidance sent to reporters Monday evening. She did not participate in any events or meetings at the White House on Tuesday, according to a White House official. Dr. Sanjay Gupta explains how Omicron compares to other variants. Harris is taking the antiviral coronavirus treatment, Paxlovid. Kirsten Allen, the Vice President's spokesperson, tweeted on Tuesday, saying, "Today, after consultation with her physicians, the Vice President was prescribed and has taken Paxlovid." And moving on to the climate change news, Catholic groups are calling for bold action on climate change. Parishes across Australia are raising banners in the lead up to Laudato Si Week and the coming federal election, calling for bold action on climate change. Laudato Si Week 2022 to be held May 22nd to 29th will mark the 7th anniversary of Pope Francis's landmark encyclical on creation care. I think people are starting to wake up that this is an important issue that we need to be vocal about, Wayne Anderson from Brisbane's Kedron Parish said. And I think that's about being authentic to the gospel call. Mr. Anderson is a member of his parish's Justice, Peace and Care for Creation Committee, eager to promote Laudato Si Week 2022, marking the 7th anniversary of Pope Francis' landmark encyclical on creation care. A day before, on May 21st, Australian voters will go to the polls with climate change identified as the #1 election issue, ahead of cost of living and the economy, according to the ABC's Vote Compass. Data collected from almost 100,000 Australians shows climate change has shot ahead as a topic of concern in recent years, jumping from 5% of Australians saying it was their most important issue in 2016 to 25% in 2019 and 29% in 2022. Well, that's a very, very interesting story, knowing that people are picking up interest in the fight against climate change. But also another interest that we need to pick up is fighting to make sure that we boost our immunity. And right there, I believe Robert is a very serious activist when it comes to that.
Talking about issues of climate change, there is so much plants that you could easily come across. Now, because of human activity, these plants are very rare, yet they were what our parents or grandparents used to stay alive and live longer and fight off a number of diseases. Now what happens, Hallelujah Reflexology, they have gotten these plants, they have gotten all that you need to boost your immune system and put it in these 2 bottles. Hallelujah Tamarind. If I ask my sister Philo, I don't know if she has ever come across a tamarind tree,
yes,
what it looks like. If she can even just describe it, you know. But remember, this contains a lot of ingredients that boost one's immune system. For Jinga, yes, that is something that you can easily come across. But remember, there's sucrose, there's nettle powder, rosemary powder, and this is also an acidity regulator. So those are not easy to come by. So at just 1,500, get any of these drinks to ensure you boost your immune system. You have to reduce on your visits to the doctors. You know, every time I'm not feeling fine, then you go blood samples and all that. But with these, you're good to go. Day by day, rain or sunshine, you'll be at your workstation.
Indeed. And also this morning, we would love to hear from you what you actually think about the poll question. Now, recently, the parliamentary whips and, of course, parliamentary committee representatives had a retreat. And some of the things that were on the table for discussion were actually reduction of the number of members of parliament to make sure that, from the 529, they are reduced to make sure that they are productive, to make sure that they are efficient. This morning, in the poll question, we want to find out from you, should the number of Ugandan members of parliament be reduced to improve their productivity in the August House? Should the number of Ugandan MPs be reduced to improve their productivity in Parliament? Hashtag UBCGMU. And of course, you can send us an SMS text and a WhatsApp message 0709-602-592. We'll be getting into your feedback as Good Morning Uganda goes on. For now, it is the inspiration song that will be, try to make sure you get up this Wednesday morning, go up and about your business, and are ready to make sure you kick the day. When we get back, it will be more discussion on commodity prices in the newsreel with me and Robert. Good morning, Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala.
I am in the company of Robert Kirabo Nyonyintono, taking you through the topic of discussion this morning. However, before we get into that, just remind you of our poll question, which is, should the number of Ugandan MPs be reduced to improve their productivity in Parliament? Should the number of Ugandan MPs be reduced to improve their productivity in Parliament? Hashtag UBCGMU, WhatsApp number 0709 602 592. The same number can actually be used to send us an SMS text, which we'll be getting into and sharing with the rest of the Good Morning Uganda family. But this morning, Robert, the last couple of weeks and actually the last couple of months, we have seen quite a disturbance when it comes to commodity prices. We have been crying, we've been making noise. We have seen legislatives come in to, have their say on this. We have seen stakeholders also make comments about this. And, well, it seems the game is going on unchanged. And the prices are not going any lower. Matter of fact, some of them are going higher. Like I did say a couple minutes ago, right now, diesel prices are actually way higher than petrol prices. This wasn't the same thing at, at the beginning. We were only seeing increases in prices, but also food commodity prices and even the basic needs. Right now, above soap in some places, you actually have to part ways with a 10,000 Ghana shilling note for you to walk away with the bar of soap. I mean, I don't think people are still doing laundry anymore, or at least you have to limit the amount of laundry you're doing. Cooking oil right now, a liter is really crazy. Milk, a mug of milk that was initially probably at about, 800 Ugandan shillings?
800, 700.
Right now, 1,200 Ugandan shillings. You may as well be lactose intolerant at this point and just put milk on the side. And when it comes to transportation, yesterday I was watching news and business people were complaining that right now, initially you would hire, a truck or something to have your commodities be brought in from, up country to Kampala because you could afford the transportation. But right now, these business people have to do it collectively so that they make contributions to the fuel, because you'll spend about 2 million Ugandan shillings on fuel just to transport some commodities, from the markets or from the gardens down there in upcountry to bring them to Kampala. Things are really not looking good. But again, this is not an issue for only Uganda or even Africa. This is the surge in prices is really being faced and felt by almost the entire globe. And we know that all this is because of the Ukraine-Russian conflict or war at this point, because we are all not immune. But I mean, looking at us as Ugandans, what do you think about this, Robert?
Well, when we discuss the increase in commodity prices, something I want today, because yesterday, like I told you, I was very hopeful that something good was going to come out of the caucus meeting in Mollen. They discussed a number of issues, but commodity prices was one of the issues. Unfortunately, by closure of that day, according to clues that I got from some people that attended MPs, they said, we've agreed to leave the situation as it is. However, they talked of another meeting, date not known to us. And we believe today it's going to make it to the order paper, maybe, for the entire House to debate about it, rather than just the NRM caucus. So we didn't get anything very clear that came out of that regarding the issue. But I want to take Ugandans back on the 22nd of this very month. The Minister for Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Honorable Matia Kasaija, came out and gave reasons why we are seeing commodities increase. And without diverting, I just want to give this to Ugandans.
Yes.
Then I'll follow with my analysis. First, he said, the current increase in the price of essential commodities are a result of events that have occurred outside Uganda. Uganda is a net importer of intermediate raw materials used in production of items such as refined cooking oil and laundry bar soap. The causes are as follows. So one is clear. He said, first, the effect of COVID-19 restriction across the world. He mentioned that it disrupted a supply chain, leading to higher transportation costs and shortage of intermediate raw materials. Then he looked at the full opening of the economy globally. Following that was a relative containment of COVID-19. And lastly, the situation has been worsened by the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which has further disrupted supply of oil, cereals such as wheat, corn, and sunflower oil, as well as essential materials like aluminium and nickel, and two countries are the major producers and exporters of these commodities. As a result, he says these factors have affected us. So when we look at these, what are given are basically external factors. That is why when Ugandans were wondering that why do we see soap produced just here by Mukwano? The factories in almost the city center, almost, goes Mukwano. And why then is above soap from Mukwano to maybe Mega, Standard, any supermarkets? Why is it high? The reason because of these external factors, that the raw materials we use even in what we manufacture here, majority of this we import. That palm oil, much as in Kalangala we have, is not, the production is not sufficient enough to sustain. Things like caustic soda, these things we use in soap, we do not manufacture here as Uganda. So because of the importation, then the issues of Ukraine and Russia, these countries produce oil and gas. And of course, when it comes to wheat, Ukraine is these are one of the countries that feed almost a big percentage of countries on this globe. So these factors are not Ugandan based. So there is a challenge.
Yes.
That we may not have full solutions to them. Some have talked about government reducing taxes.
Yes, throwing the, cutting down the taxes on some of these commodities and
giving holidays, waivers. But then the challenge is that government will lose that tax, first and foremost, because people will not be paying that tax. But unfortunately, this may not be reflected to the final consumer. Because you're in a liberal economy, it's demand and supply, I determine my costs. There is no way government can come and tell you that because we remove tax on this, you must sell your commodity at this price. If there is a willing buyer and a willing seller, I remember one time there was a committee, there was a case about land and came to Parliament. And someone smartly said, it was an issue I think about Temangalo land.
Yes.
He said there was a willing buyer and a willing seller. So if someone is willing to purchase at this cost, moreover here Ugandans, you're not willing, but you pay an arm and leg to buy that commodity. But as long as people are buying, if people weren't buying, I want to tell you, Philo, you would see either traders saying, we are moving to another business, but because people are still saving, doing their best to get these commodities, yes, the rate of purchase may have reduced, but still they are purchasing. So even reduction of taxes, unless there is a law, which also that will be another thing that you don't know if it can really be imposed under the current system.
Yes.
You reduce the taxes, I'll still keep my costs high. One time when you had this fuel shortage, the Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Robiana Banja, said, we are dealing with some fuel dealers, I think it was Shell and Total, and we shall make sure that a liter of fuel does not go beyond 5,000. It worked for 2 days.
Although in countries like Kenya, we also saw that happen. We saw the president saying that he's going to call out all the stakeholders, with when it comes to the energy, petrol, diesel, and, have a conversation and make sure that, the prices don't really go up there. Everybody's struggling, but you don't have to overdo it. You don't have to, be an overkill when it comes to the price increments.
You see, when you go in business, it's all about maximizing profits.
Absolutely.
And we must understand that there are so many dynamics in business. Philo, we can be dealing in fuel. We know each other. We should have bodies, organizations that bring them together. And we can do what they call hiding or holding. And we can just say, let's set the price. I can choose to spend 2 weeks, even without working or claiming I don't have fuel. And what will happen? The price will shoot up. Then I'll release what I have on market at that price. And if we don't have a government that interests itself in that, when we go to, we must accept, yes, fuel is a factor in all these. Raw materials, Uganda is a landlocked country, would not produce much of what we need, but also when you lack strong consumer protection bodies, when you lack activists that are listened to when it comes to such issues, you can have an increment, say, of 2%, 5%.
Yeah.
But when you go to an increment of 50, 70%, then that is something that is exploitive. I want to tell you today some schools have sent circulars to parents.
Yes.
Telling them that yes, by closure of term, we had agreed on this amount. But given what is happening in the economy currently, we've chosen to increase or to add an extra 200, 300, 500 in school fees.
But don't you think, Robert, some of these schools are actually taking advantage? And I love the fact that you raised this point, because there are certain schools I know, in previously they were paying about 1.3 as school tuition. Right now, a student is actually paying 1.9. This is going to be for the second term. Do you not feel like some of these schools are really taking advantage of the situation? The current, situation is that, yes, the economy is struggling, everybody is struggling, all these institutions are struggling. But isn't this where government should actually come in? At least try to regulate, because parents, I'm telling you, we have only about 2 weeks for children to go back to school. They're already struggling to feed these children at home because the child has to eat. Now imagine the child has to go back to school, and then there are all these increments in the school tuition. I don't know. What do you think about this?
The challenge we have in our country is we went into uncontrolled liberalization. I believe there are some sectors where government should not fully open up. One, the transport sector, that government should have a fallback position. Maybe you have buses, you have matatus that are for government, you have the train network, like for some people that ply along this route who board Uganda Railways train up to around
Namamve, yes.
That they will tell you they are paying almost half the cost that one has to pay if they use taxis. So you see that if we had more of those trains, the transport sector. Now, the education sector, government should still have grip. Yes, we have universal primary education. But I want to tell you how, when we compare these two services,
yes,
a public and a private school, that many parents maybe would choose to take their children to a private school. You get it? Despite the fact that it could be a UPE school. Some UP schools, in a craft manner, also now, parents end up paying about 200. You get it?
Yes.
They'll tell you, porridge, this, we agreed, PTA, this, that, and they're extorting money. And the president always talked about this. Now, recently, we saw the Ministry of Education and Sports issue circulars around COVID, urging schools not to set up this exorbitant fee. I want to inform you reliably that even government-aided schools did that. That receive support from government.
Yes.
Because you have schools where government helps them. They're not universal, but government helps them.
Chips
some are
in.
church founded, some were taken over by government, all that. But they had this exorbitant fee. So unless you have control, which with our system we took that is, it's not even a mixed economy, though sometimes we want to tell ourselves it's a mixed economy. But at the end of the day, these are the challenges you get. So that is why you see, government, when it comes to fuel, you have reserves, can tell you who is handling those reserves now. So government cannot at any one time say, okay, if these dealers are maintaining high prices, for us, let's release fuel on market. Definitely, they will go to a cost that is fair, and they reduce their margin of profit. Because profit margins are what we are looking at here. No one is saying that commodity prices shouldn't go up, Philo.
Yes.
No one is saying that fuel prices shouldn't go up in Uganda, because globally, the barrel of oil has increased. But what are the profit margins? What are the increments that we are having here? If taxis wake up and tell you a journey that has been of 5,000 is now 10,000, maybe logically would that be fair? But if they tell you 5,000, we've added 500, one would say that is fair. So what you're having in Uganda is something that we must really find a solution to reduce these profit margins. But we have a law that can bind this. That is also another challenge.
Well, if just in case you don't know, we are still talking about the rising commodity prices. This has been happening, and we are still yet to see it, because government indeed say there is nothing that can actually be done about it. Well, also the poll question, just to remind you that we did ask early this morning. We want to find out from you. We want you to share your 2 cents. Should be reduced to improve their productivity in Parliament? Should the number of Ugandan MPs be reduced to improve their productivity in Parliament? And well, this was after a recent discussion, or it was a suggestion that was put up recently in a retreat that was held by some Parliament whips and representatives of several parliamentary committees, thinking that maybe these MPs are not doing anything because there are extremely many, 529 legislators in that August House. Do share with us your feedback. We'll be sharing it with Good Morning Uganda family as we go on between now and 9 a.m. But for now, we're still getting into the commodity price. Robert, you seem to be very amused.
One person made a joke that parliamentarians, due to their number,
yes,
they're soon going to take us to what we had in nursery. Teacher.
To actually get on the floor and be able to. Well, we don't know how that is going to be turning out, but we're yet to see if this will be the suggestion that will be taken into action. But Robert, as we try to conclude this price commodity subject, what can we actually, how can an ordinary Ugandan, how can they go about this? Because as we see, we are not about to, we're not about to get a solid solution to this. We have had everybody come and talk about it, all the responsible parties that should be making statements about this, and it's beyond them. This is beyond them. How can a normal Ugandan survive through these hard times?
I love the word that you've used, beyond them, because when you look at Honorable Matia Kasaja's statement, he was just justifying why the commodity prices are high, telling you, UK, this is what happened, Brazil, this is what is happening, telling you that this is a problem that is global and solutions were not given. Yesterday, we still wait for maybe better communication. They will give us what they came up with. But as of now, it seems that they leave the situation as it is. Now, it is a time we take this at individual basis.
Yes.
Individual basis. One, it is now upon you to look at your priorities again. It is upon you to cut down on your expenditure on some of the things, to cut down on your consumption on some of the things, to look at what could be substitutes for those commodities that maybe have substitutes. Otherwise, as of now, you'll end up, that's going to be very hard for an ordinary Ugandan. If you are buying a bar of soap, it hits about 4,000. What does that mean? Maybe where you would just, in the morning, most of the ladies, you're putting on this, in the evening, you're putting on this, and
yes,
then that. Maybe you find a way of how your drop, in terms of how you are consuming certain things like soap, water. So you find that, so it is now coming to you at individual basis. If you look at it that we are all in this, we are. but how do you survive through? How do you cut a coat according to your cloth? This is where we've gotten now.
Okay, thank you so much, Robert. And just to give you some of the facts that are really coming into play because of all these commodity prices, you may as well think that Uganda is facing the most, but actually the entire East African region, this is how they're standing because, you know, of many areas being recently experiencing biting fuel shortages, and where the commodity is actually available, the price is quite high. So the cost of living is also rising. Inflation is at about 6.29% in Kenya, and in Uganda it is 3.2%, and when it comes to Rwanda it's at 4.2%, and well, our people there in Tanzania, it is standing right now at 3.8%, and well, when it comes to Burundi it's 13.3%, and when it comes to South Sudan 25%, and for our brothers over there in the Democratic Republic of Congo it is at 5%. And again, like we did tell you, the Ukraine conflict is also threatening global supply of grain, and also the shock when it comes to, you know, energy, and when it also comes to edible oils and fertilizers, they are really highly affected by all this. So definitely, this is an economic war and struggle we are still dealing with, not only as Uganda, not only as East Africa or Africa, but it is a global war that is still happening. Well, that is it for the Good Morning Uganda newsreel this morning, but also the poll question is still running. We'll be getting into your feedback shortly after this. We'll be getting into the papers as well to see what made it to the headlines. That's the New Vision, Daily Monitor, and the Daily Nation. Good morning.
Total Energies has undertaken a number of initiatives aimed at ensuring that Ugandan entities and citizens are adequately equipped to participate in the oil and gas sector.
Yeah, we do manufacture and supply personal protective equipment. We supply beyond Total Energies. We supply their subcontractors. Yeah, we have seen our company transform from a trading company to a manufacturing entity. We are able to set up some of these facilities that we are enjoying right now. And these facilities also are supporting other sub-sectors. So they have no idea what oil and gas is, but the items they are using are a result of oil and gas. Overall, the industry, manufacturers, suppliers, traders will all enjoy.
Total Energies EP Uganda is committed to the empowerment of Ugandans to take an active part in the overall development of the oil project in Uganda.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Get connected today with the My Airtel 4G smartphone and enjoy free data for 1 whole year worth 86,500 Uganda shillings. That's free 2 GB for the first month and free 1 GB for the next 11 months at only 250,000 Uganda shillings with free data for 1 whole year worth 86,500 shillings, making the effective price of the 4G phone 163,500 shillings only. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
In the press review this morning, starting off with the Daily Monitor, the big headline over there being Museveni MPs agreed to review coffee deal. Now, the accord reached out by the president and the party caucus came hours after the ED of Uganda Coffee Development Authority backed the agreement that the government signed with Uganda Vinci Coffee Company. And in the big picture there, the tragedy, 3 lions electrocuted in Queen Elizabeth National Park, and you can see residents and wildlife officials at the park retrieve a lion that was actually electrocuted on Monday night. And still in more news, tears as Noob picks a tour lead for Omoro race, and that is on page 3. And when you move on to page 6, government pays out 96 billion Uganda shillings to Buganda. And when it comes to the lizard doing the most, of course, tears as new picks too late for Omoro seat. Hope it won't be tears as well at the by-elections. Now, these are supposed to be happening sometime in May, and you should be able to look out for that. And again, Home Surveyor's body draws the line for professionals, and there is also pull out for Excel in PLE for your P7 student to be able to, make sure their time is worthwhile as they're trying to test in the questions over there. Moving on to the second page of the Daily Monitor, MPs grill Kamya Namuganza over giveaway of Naguru land, and this is about 82 acres size of the land that we are talking about. The story full on detail in the Daily Monitor this morning. Now, today in history, Queen Elizabeth II arrives in Uganda. And still today in history, South Africa holds first multiracial elections. And again, motorists drive at 30 kilometers per hour speed limit. All this in the Daily Monitor for this Wednesday morning. So make sure you grab yourself a copy to catch up on all the details.
The new vision is giving you 1,000 schools get $1 trillion bailout. Now, also 34 entities have pledged to support education sector in recovery. Now, there is more to that story that is on page 5 of the new vision for today. But also they give you a big picture right there of President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni speaking out on labor export. There is also the Chief Justice Alfonso Winidoro right there, and also the acting Minister Mururi Mukasa, who is also in the picture. But they are talking about mostly what was happening yesterday at the Kampala Serena Hotel. You can get much more on that story on page 3 of the New Vision for this morning. Also in the New Vision, Museveni MPs discuss coffee deal. Now that was while Museveni was meeting the NRM caucus on the controversial trade deal with the coffee agreements. Well, also in security, how dog tracked suspects in the rape case. More on that story is on page 8 of the New Vision this morning. Also in the New Vision, Namuganza in the spotlight over the Naguru land. There is much more on that story, still talking about Naguru land. You can get yourself a copy of the New Vision for today, specifically on page 6, and get to that story. Now, the New Vision this morning also gives you Mozambique's role in the NRA struggle. The full story is on page 10 and 11 of the New Vision for this morning.
And moving on to the Daily Monitor sports, rugby cranes should make most of Sevens World Cup success. And still over there in the hand of rugby crane Sevens captain Michael Korash, unleashing quite a ferocious hand off in the victory over Zambia. And City Oilers look to bounce back against JKL Dolphins today. And for you, the fanatics of NBA, the playoffs are happening. The Broom Boston Celtics completed a 4-0 sweep over the Brooklyn Nets to book their place in the Eastern Conference semi-finals. Of course, never trailing in the 116-112 victory in New York yesterday. And moving still on to the local and international sport, netball embarks on journey to Birmingham. And over there, the page pictorial, rugby cranes mine gold inside soggy Chadondo, and quite very interesting pictures, fans showing the love and our boys showing off how happy and very, very ecstatic about their win that did happen on Sunday. All that in the Daily Monitor Sports this Wednesday. Make sure you grab yourself a copy to get all the details on these celebrations.
Well, the New Vision Sport this morning shows you gymnastics as a sport. Now, right there, they give you a picture of two young ones showcasing some gymnastic skills during a welcome ceremony at Watanabe. Now, also, they are saying stick to schools. The International Federation of Gymnastics president has tasked the Ugandan government to have gymnastics entrenched into schools, since it is the core of the sports in schools. Well, that is well put across right there, and you can get more on that story in the New Vision Sport for this morning. Confirmed. What is confirmed is that 4 competitive stages for the 3-day Shell V Power Pearl of Africa Ugandan Lari has been confirmed in the districts of Mokono and Buyukwe due May 6th and 8th. Now, there is more to that story and how the stages will be running, where, when, which cars. That is in the New Vision Sport for this morning. But they also give you Budo and Chitende retained basketball titles. They give you some of the pictures right there at St. Noah as players, as they were playing against Chitende. Now, also behind the rugby's success, there is a much more story to that, especially with the rugby cranes, as they're running for the African 7 title right there in the New Vision Sport for this morning.
And moving on to the Daily Nation this morning, Musila, how I twice saved Mwai Kibaki's life. That over there is on page 9, and you can catch up the story. But also looking at Interpol probes politician who moved 25 billion shillings. That is on the money trail. Who is the mystery politician in global investigation? And they show you actually the breakdown of what and how much was spent, where and where it was taken. So you don't want to miss all that. And delayed tactic fears as aspirants get 20 days to name deputies. Very, very interesting. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, of course, been pushed to a tight corner over this. And in the tragedy over there, family of murdered athletics star waits for police answers. And taking a look at the education section, CBC training for junior secondary teachers actually started off. All this in the Daily Nation, and you can grab it at just 2,700 Ugandan shillings to catch up on all these stories. Now, after all this, I mean, this weather here, let me tell you, Mollen, I was really confused and I was wondering, where are you? Maybe the weather has turned against the weather prophetess. I don't know what was happening, but good morning.
Yes, a very good morning to you, Philomena. You see, sometimes with the weather, you have to first get onto the satellites themselves and analyze the situation. With the forecast going on for this morning, I think I had to take more effort into analyzing what will happen and give Ugandans the right updates, for sure.
You know, at one point I was thinking, wow, the weather has turned against. She's become a victim of her glory, of why? How can this be?
No, being a prophetess, obviously I saw it coming, but again, not everyone is able to see it coming, so we need to give them the statistics of what is happening and why we do expect that kind of weather, which we will be diving into a little bit later on.
Well, there you go. Indeed, Mollen will be giving you some of the weather updates as, you know, just in a couple of minutes. But also just to remind you of our poll question, definitely, that is how or what are your expectations or what are your thoughts when it, you know, to make sure that their productivity is improved. Should the number of Ugandan MPs be reduced to improve their productivity in Parliament? The hashtag is UBCGMU. And again, you can send us a WhatsApp message or an SMS text, and that is 0709-602-592. But also, when it comes to the traffic this morning, I want to focus on the Kampala division, some of the routes that you could ideally use to make sure that you get to your workplaces or your destinations as early as you can, and some of the alternative routes you could actually be using. I will just start off. If you are using the main road, that is the Kampala Jinja Highway, well, the traffic over there is actually a little bit heavy, as indicated by the red dots that are actually dominating this area. However, as you go on, as you try to access Kampala Road, it's actually a better route, and that clearly clearly shows you that the traffic is still maybe from the people who are still in the outskirts. They haven't yet arrived in town. But when they do, eventually the traffic will get heavier by the minute. And also, if you're using Entebbe Road to access the Kampala Road, just over there, the junction, the traffic is starting to build up because we have cars connecting in from Entebbe Road, trying to join the main road to make sure they get to their final destinations. And I will tell you one thing for sure, that there is always a traffic build-up around there because we have cars that are coming in from Entebbe, but we also have cars that are coming in from the access road after joining from the industrial area, after joining in from Mukwano Road. So they use access road as an alternative route. Eventually, they all get to join the Entebbe Road to join the main road, which is Kampala. So if you're trying to leave that area, or if you're trying to access that area, you should be ready for what you are about to see, because the traffic buildup is actually still there as portrayed by the orange stretches. But also, just to take you to the side of Wandegea, if you're accessing Kampala from the side of Wandegea, the traffic is flowing, so you have nothing to worry about. If you're planning to leave, you could actually use Buganda Road, which is a one-way for mainly leaving the city center, so nothing for you to worry about. Bomba Road is manageable, the traffic is flowing, so you don't have anything to worry about. And when it comes to Nile Avenue, the road is actually clear for you to use. So that is a better alternative road to make sure that you get to the city center and also access, eventually you access the city square. City square around there, the road is actually very okay. So you have absolutely nothing to worry about. So if you're around Kampala, if you are in the city center and you want to make your movements to or out of Kampala and you're there, then you need to plan accordingly. And also just a simple road tip for you. Now that we are in a rainy season, it's most of these roads are slippery, and most of our Ugandan roads, we know they have potholes. So you need to actually be able to drive at a standard speed limit. Do not be very fast on the roads, because the only road user, because there are very many other road users. So make sure you are very careful, you drive at a standard limit to be able to use these roads and get to where you're going safe and sound. Well, I will now officially let you in on what's happening when it comes to the climate news and information. And of course, the weather prophetess Mollen Kenyena is going to be giving us more, and also the weather forecast, whether this is the season or rather this is the weather that is going to prevail during the course of the day. Mollen.
Well, thank you very much, Philomena. Now, we do have some rainy conditions going on across much of the country, and obviously that is, adding into a rainy season for the March to May first major rainy season across Uganda. We have seen more performance in this month of April in terms of rainy conditions, and I think the farmers cannot complain, or even other sectors that do depend on these rains. It seems like much of them are still coming, and also not to, rule out the fact that we could be looking at extreme events in areas, especially low-lying areas where there's likelihood of having a bit of flash flooding. So still communities should be on the lookout for the possibilities of that happening as most of these rains continue to come through. But we do know that the Uganda National Meteorological Authority is in terms of expecting extreme weather events. Those updates will be coming through, and we could always pass those to you. But also, if you have noticed on social media, just from yesterday into even right now as we're speaking, there is a hashtag trending, and that is with the rich man, that is Elon Musk. Well, what we do know is that the Tesla mogul is going across with buying Twitter, but also there is a campaign against what he does with Tesla. Apparently, he's anti-climate, and scientists have already come through to say that even as he takes on more ventures, he's still not coming clean with what is happening with his projects in Tesla, especially moving to electric car transition. Now, what has been said is that investors are saying more complicated than that. Less concerned is that Elon Musk is not taking the concern to bring out his transition plan into having 100% electric cars that do produce less emissions into the atmosphere. So he may not like it, but environmental credentials still come second to profit and loss for the world's sustainability-minded investors. Even if it comes off as mean or short selling, shares to bet on a price will drop. Now, as long as he is not presenting his transition, goal in terms of going for electric cars, even the Teslas that are very much high selling in a lot of countries could be facing a phase out if he's not looking into what all the global markets are advising in terms of what is going on with clean energy. Well, as he was speaking on his media tour of the Tesla configuration, which will produce batteries for electric car makers, then he also said that he's looking into going for electric cars 100%. However, it seems like not everyone is convinced that the rich man is willing to come through with that as he takes on more advantages. Now, he's the second person to be called on. We do know that Bill Gates was called upon before, and the difference with him and Bill Gates is that Bill Gates was able to take on the advice that was coming through from the scientists, and most of even the campaigns he's doing right now is about funding for a green, coming up with green fund that is mostly towards developing countries in helping for adaptation and recovery when it comes to climate action. There has been a lot that was done by the Gates Foundation in terms of climate action across the world. Now, I think we're also expecting that, the Tesla founder will be heading into the same direction as he takes on more adventures. And that is something that the world is looking through. So much of what is trending right now is as he takes in on the bid to buy of Twitter, how about he also avails his transition plan to 100% electric cars? That is still a big question right there that he has to be dealing with right now. But also, as we talk about climate action, there are also reports that are coming through indicating the danger that we're facing right now in terms of climate justice that is happening. Now, we do know that there has been a lot going on with extreme weather events, and that picture right there is taken from the outskirts of Kenya, where we see some of the children within a dumping area. Now, what comes across is that we have seen a report from the UN that is indicating that 2 million children are at risk of starvation in the Horn of Africa. Again, as we talk about to continue across the Horn of Africa. We're talking about areas of Somalia, Ethiopia, we're talking about even the northern side of East Africa, whereby we have seen more of even plastic dumping happening across the area, even in the face of these droughts. The donors are still pledging up to $1.4 billion in the funding, but what we know is that this money might not be enough, because some of the countries that have come through to ask for this funding so far, we do have areas of Somalia, we do have Ethiopia also, and not to mention that even the East African part, especially northern region, the Karamoja region, Turkana, those are the areas that have been having drought crisis, and in the face of even having less cattle at a risk of the drought. Now, even with this money coming through, the question is that will it be enough as we face the worst drought in the decade? And this is coming through from the UN report that was produced yesterday from Geneva, and they could be looking at an aid coming through with a funding of 2 million, with a funding of $1.4 billion, but we don't know whether that will be enough. But we're still looking at extremes of how climate change has affected the region. And as if that is not enough, we have also seen much more of extreme weather events happening across South Africa, especially with the flooding recently, and much more of that is related to what is happening globally in terms of climate variations. But we are seeing some of the African countries that are moving towards the solution part, which is what we should all be looking forward to, because while we're looking at the problem of climate change, there are solutions available. And one of the countries that have taken on this mantle is South Africa. So far, they are looking at a transition into clean energy, and specifically into tapping into wind energy. Now, this is going to be one of the biggest that South Africa has embarked on in terms of putting across wind turbines to produce renewable energy that will be outside of Caledon. yesterday, but also they are indicating that by 20th May they will be ready. Now the government of South Africa says that they will need 1 trillion rand by 2030 to have this project running, and which will need up to 4 trillion rand by 2050, as said by government. Now that is equivalent to 63.7 billion US dollars by 2030. That is the money that the government of South Africa is willing to actually put across to move into renewable energy. Now, if you ask me, I think this is money well spent, because what they're looking at is that they want to win themselves off coal and focus on renewables, and that means that they're actually cutting their emissions in terms of also reducing on the use of fossil fuels. But they're also saying government is also embarking on battery storage, electric vehicles, and setting up green hydrogen economy, which would require funding of over 1 trillion rand in South Africa's currency. But we also look into the fact that the government of South Africa is willing to actually move into renewable energy, and this is one thing that I always say here, and I've had the issues with Robert over it. Even us as Uganda here, we should be moving towards that, because imagine all that money is coming through and you want to take it towards renewable energy. This can be done. We could also have wind turbines, we could also have solar plants across the country. Now, instead of fueling our money into the fossil fuels that are soon phasing out, even when we are party to a pact that is saying, hey, we need to reduce on the use of fossil fuels, instead of us venturing there, how about we channel that money and get into maybe creating solar plants, into wind turbines? Because we are seeing more of the African countries actually take on this task, and that way we can arrive at a goal of climate action and probably hope for a better planet. I'll tell you one thing, we do have planet A. We have no assurance that there is planet B, so we better make sure that the planet A is actually safe. Well, we'll go ahead and take a look into the weather that's happening across the country for this morning, and that will be across our satellites from UMISAT this morning, looking into the situation with the clouds over Uganda. Well, we did start off with a lot of rainy systems actually for this morning. It looks like most of those have started to clear, but what we do have is that at least most parts of the central part of northern Uganda, central Uganda, and the Lake Victoria Basin did start off with most of those rains. Now, that rainy system started across from Amuria, across Kabina Maido, across Apache, and now it is over the midwestern parts of Uganda, where you see the blue colors to green, orange, and red. Those are the rainy systems I'm talking about. That system is mostly building across Masindi right now as we speak. A lot of rains happening over there, and also across parts of Hoima. We're seeing that those rains also coming through, and looks like that is moving mostly also southwards, so most likely all the Albertine region across that area is having those rains as we speak. Now, still some of the drizzles across Padel, Gulu, and Apache as that system tries to clear on. But that did start on a little bit earlier, bringing much more of the rains across areas of Amuria, Buyende, across Kabiramaido, across Lira as well. That is where we started off with the rains, but that at least has started to clear off. So as we head into later in the day, that might be looking into sunny intervals over there. But also for the Karamoja region, we're seeing mostly cloudy conditions across areas of Moroto, across areas of Kotido right there, but also across the Mbale area, that is across the Elgon region. We're seeing mostly cloudy conditions, but those will also be clearing into mostly sunny intervals. Now, across the Lake Victoria Basin, we're looking at areas of Jinja, still cloudy. Now, that rainy system that we started with earlier in Kampala looks to be clearing on. Now, we might be looking at quite some sunny skies coming through as that system is heading mostly westwards. But not in the clear yet is Masaka across the western parts of Lake Victoria. We're seeing rain still over the area, and most likely those will be moving a little bit westwards. We could be looking at more rains crossing over even towards southwestern Uganda, across areas of Mbarara, Boshenyi. You could be having those rains for your morning. Even as we speak, we have that rainy system going across, so those rains are over. We might be looking at more rains as the morning progresses. Still cloudy weather across Kabale Highlands, but we do expect more rains to come through as the morning progresses over there, and also same for areas of the Rwenzori region, that is across Kasese, also across Fort Portal and Toroko. That area should be expecting rains for this morning. Now, generally, we're looking at quite cloudy weather across much of Uganda this morning with rainy conditions involved, but we'll go ahead and take a look into the forecast for this morning across several places, and also take a look into those numbers. Now, starting off with the western side of Lake Victoria, we're looking at Masaka, Kalisizo, Zimbabwe, and Rakai. We're forecasting those isolated showers, already having those rains coming through, but temperatures are quite at a cool 25 degrees centigrade. Now, across Mbara, Bushenyi, Irizi, the morning is expected to clear up into intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, starting off with a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade. Across Mbale, Bududa, Buko, Sironko, we already have those cloudy conditions over there, but we'll be having some sunny conditions also in the mixture, starting off with quite a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade. The eastern side of Lake Victoria, Tor, Busia, Iganga, Jinja, already having those drizzles as the system tries to clear off. We're forecasting temperatures to be at 26 degrees centigrade, quite chilly for this morning, but that will be, clearing up to quite warm weather later in the afternoon. The central part of northern Uganda, Pradel, Kitgum, Gulu, and Adjumani, we're forecasting isolated showers. We already have those rains across the area even as we speak, and temperatures will be at a cool 26 degrees centigrade. We expect that system to clear as we head into the afternoon. The eastern side of central, we have those rains going across there. That is part of isolated showers for the entire morning, and we're looking at quite some cool weather also at 25 degrees centigrade. We do expect those rains to stick around even later in the afternoon. Now across eastern Uganda, Katakwi, Amoria, Kumi, Soroti, we have those rains still in the forecast. We did start off with most of those earlier in the morning, but looks like temperatures will also be quite low at 26 degrees centigrade, and those will also be clearing as we head into the afternoon to mostly sunny intervals. Now across the central part of Lake Victoria, where we do have Mukono, Kampala, Entebbe, Wakiso, we are forecasting isolated showers. We do have a clearing trend as those rains starting to clear off, but some areas still having those rains in the forecast, starting off with quite a cool 24 degrees centigrade over the area, and we could be looking at much more of those rains coming through as we head into the afternoon. Now looks like it's quite some cold that you still must have that jacket with you, you must have that umbrella with you if you're moving across town and also going out of town, because most areas are expected to have more rains develop later in the afternoon, especially the western side of the country as well as parts of central Uganda. So you might be looking at yet another cold day across the area. Sports highlights as well by Ruben Mpima Chividango. Well, we're also streaming live on YouTube, that is UBC Television Uganda, and of course you can catch us on social media platforms, that is the hashtag UBCGMU. My name is Mollen, Kenyena. I want to wish you a lovely morning.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by
Authentically symbolic and insightful.
We should work so hard to evacuate this power.
Behind the headlines, every Wednesday at 10 p.m. with Charles Odong Top.
How to get points. Just use MTN to make calls, send SMS, load airtime, buy bundles, or pay for MTN subscription services.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Need to send money to a loved one but you don't have enough on your phone? Have you run out of fuel but you don't have enough money? Do you want to pay for yaka or water but have insufficient funds? Or do you want to shop but with MTN Momo Advance. Momo Advance tops up your Momo to complete your transactions. Dial *165*5*3# to apply. MTN Momo Advance is always available when you need it.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Why do we fast as Muslims? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our creator. He knows how our bodies function. He knows what's good for us and He knows better what's better for us. So we do fast, specifically the holy month of Ramadan, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is busy granting us discipline in line with our eating habits. One of the reasons to why we consider fasting, one, is for us to revise our eating habits as Muslims. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam already guided us that as you're breaking your fasting, it's sunnah to break your fast with a glass of water and maybe with dates. Nutrition-wise, it's just perfect for you to do that. And also, as you fast, it helps you to get rid of the excessive fats from your body. So as you're fasting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designed our bodies that they do attain energy from what we eat. So if at all you're fasting, of course you're not eating anything. That's why the body changes the system to utilizing the fats within your body. And so as a result, you're going to get energy from the same very fats of the body. So that's why as you're fasting, you're basically doing away with blood pressure diseases, heart diseases, mention any that you know. So if you're asked today, why do you consider fasting the holy month of Ramadan, or maybe even fasting the optional kind of fasting, smartly and confidently say out that you really need to be healthy. That's why you consider and maybe observe fasting. We fast as Muslims because we need to be more healthy, and we fast because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who created our bodies, He knows that fasting is better in line with being more healthy. Wa barakallahu fikum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Brought to you by UBC TV and Star TV in partnership with Umka Foundation, Umma Muslim Convertibility.
Football packages, great entertainment,
sports, the local content, telenovela, the movies. There is something for everybody. Go TV, this is where great stories live.
Get the best entertainment for any budget. With GoTV, you will have great entertainment for as little as 13,000 Ugandan shillings per month. GoTV, great stories, Zidiwano. GoTV Uganda, love it.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, and thank you for keeping with us here on UBC TV. Once again, I'm Robert Kirabo, Nyonyintono. It is exactly 7 minutes past 8 a.m. this morning. It is a cold morning here in Kampala, and of course, we've had some early morning showers. So in case you're coming to town, better be armed than regretting if you had carried an umbrella or a cardigan or something to keep you warm. And if you have infants, please be very mindful that such weather really comes with a lot of colds, flus, cough, and ensure they are warm and in safe hands. Well, today we want to assess, that is term 1 of our education calendar. We must recall that the education sector had been closed for about 2 years, and on the 10th of February this very year, His Excellency declared that schools would fully reopen. All learning institutions in this country would fully reopen. And we saw schools open amid speculations. Now we had a period up to the 15th of last month where we saw first term holidays, schools broke off. In just 2 weeks, schools will be resuming. But we want to look into term 1. What were the lessons learned? What are the challenges? And how has the Ministry of Education and Sports handled this, or how should school preparators handle this? One of the recent challenges is some schools have already come out and sent circulars informing parents that due to the prevailing circumstances of commodity prices, of fuel prices, they have been forced to have an increment in tuition. Now, joining me on set is the State Minister for Primary Education, but also Moyo District Member of Parliament, Dr. Moruko Joyce Kaduku. You're most welcome to our studios, Honorable.
Thank you so much. Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be here this morning. I want to thank God for this opportunity that we are here today. It's a great day, and I want to thank God that has brought us this far as a country. We've gone through lots of challenges in the past 2 years, and I want to thank His Excellency, the President of this country, for the strategic leadership, the directions that he's given the people of Uganda, most especially the time of COVID-19. And it is through those guidance, through those directions, that we've managed the situation up to now. We've come a long way, and we are very grateful as Ministry of Education and Sports to see that all our learning institutions have reopened, and we are so happy that the whole of first term, most especially for the basic education and the secondary education, that they have gone through successfully, and we've achieved quite a lot despite the challenges. And of course, we are grateful that the term closed so well. Currently, children are back to school, and we hope come term 2, they will be in position, just as in term 1, to come back to the learning institutions and to carry on with their education cycle.
When we talk about term 1, of course, we knew this was the first time after 2 years. Top on agenda were COVID-19 guidelines, the standard operating procedures that schools had to stick to. Honorable, by closure of term, we would find that a number of schools had forgotten all about this. What was your assessment to begin with as far as complying with the set guidelines regarding the prevention of COVID-19, the spread of COVID-19 in schools?
Yeah, the truth is that right from the beginning of term 1, we've invested a lot in terms of training our teachers on surveillance, carrying on with the message of prevention, following the SOPs. A lot has been put in place in terms of preventing the COVID situation in schools. And I think that was done so well. We've tried as much as possible to get the teachers to be able to detect children that have got cough, flu, symptoms to COVID-19, to be able to report, and we are in position to screen quickly, to test them. For those with COVID, they are referred for appropriate treatment and management. But so far, we did not get any major outbreak of COVID-19 in any learning institutions, apart for the influenza that we got the outbreak in the schools. And of course, it is self-limiting, and we communicated that to the school administrators, to parents, that they should not panic, they should not really be anxious. It is something that can be managed within the school environment, and that is so far what was done. But away from COVID, I want to thank school administrators, school management. I want to thank parents that have entrusted their children to the schools. And we managed to enroll quite a number of children. In some schools, the numbers have doubled up. And of course, most of the government learning institutions, all of them were reopened, apart from some of the private schools, which previously were converted to other service points. But all in all, the teachers were given training how to handle these children, realize COVID came with challenges, much as we've handled well as a country, but there are challenges that COVID has brought on board, challenges that we should look at the 21st century learning skills.
Honorable, just to understand, you said you didn't register major cases when it comes to the spread of COVID-19. Do you attribute this to proper monitoring and supervision or God's grace?
No, first of all, of course, God is above all. We thank God because we are a God-fearing country. We trust in Him every day in His grace and mercy. But the second point, why we saw the prevalence of COVID getting low is the strategy that the president put in place. One of them is to ensure a critical mass of population were vaccinated. And I think the vaccine has seen this miracle, has seen this magic that is in our country. We've really vaccinated quite a number of people. We started with the critical masses, the teachers, the security people, the health workers. We went on to those underlying medical conditions, those above 50 years, and then, of course, all the other population, including our students who are 18 years and above. And by the time we reopened the schools, we had really vaccinated a big percentage of our teachers, of the students, and the non-teaching staff. That alone has really given us that courage, the confidence that, yes, we are safe. The third point is that we really did a lot of training on surveillance, following the SOPs. We did a lot of sensitization to ensure that the teachers, the non-teaching staff, try as much as possible to follow the SOPs, including the students. And those are the things that has brought on board the significant achievement and the success story that we're able to tell, and the history that the country has made that we're able to tell for ages.
Prior to the reopening of Term 1, there were fears that maybe some teachers weren't going to get back to their workstations. Some had resorted into other better paying jobs. To what extent did this affect the first term of learning? Because that will mean that even in the second term, maybe those that had left may not return.
The beauty of science, you cannot do away with it. It's one thing to speculate, it's one thing to talk about without evidence, but once there is evidence, you can never go wrong. Prior to reopening of schools, a lot have been talked about the teachers, that the teachers have gone away from the teaching profession, they're doing other businesses, they're up and down, they may not come back to the teaching profession. On our part, we said, yes, it's okay. If a teacher gotten involved into farming, it's not bad. If a teacher gotten involved into a business, it's not bad. But the most important thing is that the teacher should be able to balance these activities to ensure that he gives his time for teaching, but after teaching, he should be in position to carry on with other extra activities that he's doing. Even myself, that sometimes we can focus on our professional job, but let's also think out of the box. I, for one, I can, yes, do my work as a medical doctor, as a Minister of Education, State for Primary Education, but also I'm farming. At my free time, I go to the garden. That does not stop me from my cardinal profession. So all in all, we have registered over 95% of the teachers back into the teaching profession. Only 5% that have gotten out to do other business, who think otherwise that they cannot balance the two. They may not be in position to teach, at the same time to run their businesses or to be able to teach and to do other work. But all in all, the 95% teachers that have registered back into the teaching profession, that's a big success. As for the 5%, the ministry has already done auditing. We have already registered who is there, who is not there. So now that is the time that we're going to replace. The wage is already available. What remains is just to advertise and recruit. Recruitment process has been ongoing for the secondary, and also some of the districts have been recruiting for the basic education. Now it is time, we hope, as we open the second term, as we move forward, we should be in position to fill all the gaps so that we have 100% teachers in place.
95%, that is teacher returning back. Let's look at students. We had those that had conceived. You said they returned to school. And this was a dilemma because we were imagining how is this situation going to be handled, more so in private schools, much as government would. So giving us an assessment, how are the issue of pregnant girls? Did you register them back in school? Are they enjoying all that they should in school, or the society didn't welcome them and maybe many missed out? Dropout rates were foresighted because some believe parents don't have money, but also those high pregnancy rates.
Yeah, I think I really want to thank people of Uganda, the parents, the entire community, for overwhelmingly supporting the call from the First Lady. She called upon our people that we should be in position to support the girl child, especially those who gotten pregnant, those who drop out, those who went for early marriage, to be able to come back for second chance. And because of the support to that call, there was extensive sensitization. There was extensive message that went all over the country. And because of that, we've seen quite a number of children getting back to school. That's why the enrollment number in some schools were double the previous number. Enrollment figure went up. You've seen that infrastructures were not enough to accommodate all the children. We've seen that the girl child, those who were pregnant, even they were eager to come back. Even the breastfeeding mothers. Only that in the middle, there was a lot of that debate. Should we allow a mother with a baby to come and sit in the class? Would they allow a mother who is pregnant? That was the debate that was taking place. But all in all, I think the mindset has changed to embrace and support the girl child who got pregnant, also the boy child. Those who went for business, those who got involved in brick making, maybe doing business and doing other things, the call that went extensively out has brought the children back to school. I must appreciate the religious leaders, the church leaders, the cultural leaders, and the entire people of this country. They have really advocated for the children to get back to school. We launched as a ministry with support from our partners the Go Back to School campaign that have seen very many children being enrolled into school. That is a very good gesture, but it does not go smoothly. It came on board with lots of challenges. Challenges of infrastructure. The infrastructure was not enough to accommodate all our children. We had to improvise some temporal infrastructures in some schools, the tents and temporal infrastructures. And because of that, we are now planning how best we can have the permanent structures in some of the schools. And also this has brought on board the teachers. As the COVID, as the enrollment grows up, the teachers have to bring on board innovative method of learning and teaching, because you cannot have over 100 children in class and you're able to sit or to stand and teach effectively. You must devise effective mechanism of delivering. That's why the double shift system came on place. There are those who can learn morning, afternoon. There are those who are in position to probably divide the class so that we can have effective learning. And I must say that, yes, COVID has brought on board a lot that we have to learn. It has brought on board that we can have the blended form of learning. We cannot get completely stuck on classroom teaching, especially for higher institutions. We can have both the ICT, the digital literacy learning together with the classroom teaching. So what I can say is that with the COVID that we are now post-COVID, this is the recovery time.
And one of the things is that blended learning. Honorable, before we leave term 1 now to look into term 2, which is soon going to be starting, we saw a recap of school fires. And this was a challenge to the ministry because we had taken years, over a decade at least, when school fires. Just in term 1, we just had over 25 fires. We saw about 5 or 6 lives of students lost in these fires. As a ministry, police does the investigation machinery. We understood that there are some guidelines that we had issued to schools after we saw the fire, among others at that time. And this indicated like nothing had been put in place by most of these schools where we had these fire incidents.
That is true. I must say that the first term, much as we registered a lot of success, we also registered challenges. One of them is the fire outbreaks in school. We've got strikes that was taking place in some schools, especially in West Nile. We've got stigma among the teenage mothers who've got back to school. The infrastructure challenges. Coming back to the issue of the fire outbreak. For the last 2 years, the learning institutions have remained closed. The fact is that we've put lots of focus in preventing COVID infections. We've put lots of focus in controlling the infection. And just think about this building has been there for the last 2 years. People were not inside. We have the electrical wiring issues. Probably there are some faults here and there, and many other challenges that might have not looked into. So as we reopen the schools, certainly there must have been some challenges because the renovation did not take place immediately. There were gaps in terms of resources for the schools, most especially the private schools. They were not in position to put everything in place. Otherwise, prior to that, the issue of outbreak of fires in schools have been minimized. But now that the schools were kept for 2 years, and then we reopen, little did we witness, time to time, there was fire outbreak, and most of them are originating from the buildings, from the dormitories. That means there is a lot that probably has not gone well. There is a lot that have not put well. Nevertheless, after all those series of outbreak of fires, as a ministry, we quickly put interventions that could be sustainable, that could last, and help the schools to be safe. And there's been a lot of training together with the partners, together with the police, a lot of sensitization. We sent the message, the circular, back to schools, the heads, the school administrators, to be able to implement some of the critical things that are needed to keep our children safe. So far, so good. We hope, come second term, we will be in position to this time round to have really no fire outbreaks in schools. But also we have intensified the support supervision, especially schools that have not followed the guidelines of putting children to sleep in dormitory.
Honorable, let me just remind my viewer that you can be part of the topic of discussion this morning by simply going to your WhatsApp number and sending us an SMS, a question to the Honorable Minister, Minister of State for Primary Education, Dr. Joyce Moruku Kaduchu. Any question regarding, as you look at first time, of course, second time is just around the corner. And that is the number on your screen, 0709 60 2592. 0709 60 2592. You can send us a WhatsApp message or the traditional SMS. I'll be reading out all your opinions, all your questions, and she'll be responding to many. Now, Doctor, you are talking about the ministry enforcing, but the biggest challenge has been Ministry of Education. You issue circulars. I want to commend you. I remember most of the PSs have issued circulars. We are going to close. We are going to deny licenses, we are going to do this. But I think you're doing more of lip service than action. Let me give you an example. When schools were about to reopen, there were circulars regarding school fees. Not exorbitant, don't exploit parents, but I can confidently inform you that even in government-aided schools, this happened. There was a time when you said you had banned triple deckers in schools. And the ministry was very clear, any school that is found will face closure. We can mention a number of times where Ministry of Education and Sports has come out and really issued circulars, threatened. What hinders you? Is it the system, you're in liberalization? Is it conflict of interest? Because some people have said that maybe most of the big shots still own schools, so they can't be a judge of their own. So what hinders the ministry to bite when it comes to these private owners that aim at maximizing profits, forgetting the lives of the children, not considering the parents?
I think there are dogs that bark, they don't bite. But there are dogs that bark at the same time they bite. There are those that do not bark, but they just go on to bite. So the ministry barks and bites. We do not only issue circulars without taking actions, Yes, we need to understand the system that we are in. We've got system in place, government system. As a ministry, we have the central and the local government, especially where the schools, the basic schools are. The basic schools are under the local government. And in the local government, say a district, we have the district education officer, we have the school inspectors, we have the chief administrative officers, and the other lower cadres up to the head teacher level and down. While the other secondary schools, which are still under the ministry, will also have system that can deliver and they can monitor and supervise these schools up to that level. So once a circular is given to schools, we really expect everybody to be able to follow. Even the RDCs, they've got work to do. They need to monitor. They need to monitor to see that this circular is being implemented and whatever is in that circular is being implemented. Yes, it is true. The issue of school fees, we've offered circular. The First Lady, who is the Minister of Education and Sports, has offered guidance and circular on how schools can charge school fees. And following that, it was so sad that most government schools, not most but some government schools, they were charging school fees which are high, as well as the private schools. So in that effect, we really tried as much as possible to communicate. We passed information. And I think following that communication, whatever we passed, the schools were in position to calm down. Some of them, of course, had to translate the fees into requirement.
Some
of them had to, instead of reduce the school fees, but put more into requirement. But we are saying, no, please. The COVID has affected everybody, has brought everybody on the same level. Parents are equally struggling to get money to pay children. So you, the school owner, school proprietors, school administrators, let's be human. Let's be considerate and be fair And yes, it is true that this came to pass. But now that we are going to the next phase, the question everybody is asking today and is waiting to see is, how are the schools going to charge? And I want to say that yes, most of the schools have offered fee structure for the entire year. Already parents have got to know, first term this is the fee structure, second time this is the fee structure, as well as third
But
term.
Honorable, there are still some that are sending circulars now, saying that because of the prevailing situation, we are still increasing. Some are increasing about 150, some 200, and I think this is knowledge, information that the ministry has come across.
But of course, yes, as I was just explaining, the fee structure for the entire term, for the entire year, most schools have already given to the circular to the parents. Parents are in the know-how of how much they are going to pay school fees second term and third term. But because of the prevailing situation, the situation that everybody is aware about, during COVID, most of these manufacturing industries were closed. Most of these consuming institutions were closed. Schools were closed. Hotels were closed. If, for example, the factory of soap or the factory of poso is supposed to make more supplies, who is going to consume? But now that the economy is fully opened, that is the time. Now we can see prices have gone up.
Honorable, relatedly or related to that, looking at the mandate of the Ministry of Education and Sports to cause sanity, or in case, I'll give you one of the incidents that I've grown up experiencing. That is holiday teaching. Since I was in school, primary, we've had government always coming out clearly and saying holiday lessons will not be carried out. This has been so often. Even at this particular time, I can tell you there are schools that are conducting holiday lessons. We just come from COVID. There is a blended curriculum. There is so much that is being done, but unfortunately, still holiday lessons are happening in some schools. So this brings the ordinary person to wonder, why is your mandate? When do we really see that, okay, this is a must? Yes, we know globally things are not their best, but it seems because is it of liberalization, most of private schools seem to be masters of their own. It is my school, apart from the curriculum and the license I get from the ministry, I do what I want.
Yes, I was just explaining that during COVID, most of the manufacturing industries were closed, and most of the consumers, including hotels, schools, and all those, were also closed. So the demand was, actually the demand supply was not equating. But as of now, the demand is too much and the supply is little. And of course, the material for manufacturing some of those supplies that we need in place, they are scarce. So that is why we see this global price going up of essential commodities. Coming back to the issue of schools, indeed it is true that before the reopening of the schools early this year, we put a lot of strategy in place. One of the key strategies is how do we as ministry bridge the lost time? How do we bridge the critical time that our children have lost? How do we ensure that these children are promoted progressively to the next level and they're in position to cover the lost time? And on top of that, there was this abridged version of curriculum that was put in place to bridge the lost time, the time that the parents, the children have lost, as well as the teachers. But I must say that the terms were planning in such a way you have the 14 weeks. The 14 weeks is actually more than the usual normal term weeks. And this is put in place to bridge the gap so that the teachers are in position to complete the teaching syllabus for that term, as well as to cover the lost term, because the child has progressed to the next level. And that is why it's a little bit longer. But again now, after closing for these 14 weeks, for another school to quickly get the children on holiday program, I think that is too much for the psychology of a child. These children are mentally traumatized. Socially, they needed to be, brought in the school environment. Psychologically, they need to be counseled. They need psychosocial counseling. So for them to be traumatized, to be brought again on board, to be coached in this holiday program, I think that is too much for their brain. So we have been, as ministry, we've been offering strategic guidelines, guidance for the school administrators, for the teachers, the head teachers. Please, let's look at this child in an holistic manner, because the child needs to be brought up not only to be filled with the knowledge, and that's why the lower secondary curriculum is completely based on competence. We're talking about competence-developed child. Because when you think about only pumping this child with a lesson, knowledge, what kind of citizen are you going to come out? And if you may allow me to talk about the competence-based curriculum, it's more of child-centered as opposed to teacher-centered. We are looking at building the skill of this child. We are looking at this child to be a critical thinker, to be innovative. This child to be able to solve problems,
and that is what
to be able to communicate effectively, to be able to be analytic skills, so that the child can go out and compete favorably in job market.
Let's look at some of the questions that are coming in. We have, hi UBC, how will you stop the style of sending children back home for school fees? That is a question. We didn't get who sent it. Then, hi UBC, thanks for the program. They are really educative and entertaining. Okay, thank you, Alan. Bless. Still another one coming in. He says, he talks about caning. And says, good morning UBC, thank you for the program. I'm Angel from Entebbe. Thanks for the show. My question is, students and pupils, are they allowed to be caned at school? Because my brother was caned in a way that I got to take him to a clinic. Please keep those messages coming in, both SMS and WhatsApp. The number is on your screen, 070-960-2592. Issue of caning and sending children back home to collect school fees.
I think we are speaking about 25 sensory learning methods. We are speaking about 21st sensory skilling. Globally, the world has embraced the 25 sensory learning methods. And in this method, when you are trying to be a child-centered, when you are trying to innovate this child to think outside the box, I think even the school administrators, the teachers should be able to be critical thinkers, should be able to be innovative. There are ways that you can give punishment to these children other than caning them. You can be able to reprimand a child who has done something bad in a different way that the child can be able to correct and to move forward other than caning. So we continue to appeal to our school administrators. Be innovative. Get ways that this child can learn the mistakes that has done and get to the track other than caning the child. Because even as parents, we are saying that our role to nurture our children is in a way that we can teach this child to be a better child, in a way that we don't punish this child.
Maybe to be more specific, was corporal or beating banned in Ugandan schools? Because I think this is what our viewer wants to know. Is it allowed or not?
Beating I think that is long ago. We no longer go with that. We can do other better punishment for a child other than beating this child. Because sometimes you forget that you are beating a child. You can give this child a punishment that is different from beating this child. At the end of it, if you really allow to beat this child, you forget you're handling a young adult, you end up caning mercilessly, and the child ends up in the hospital as a case of
Question
point.
2 was the issue of sending the style, call it the style of sending children back to collect school fees.
That's another challenge that we are facing as Ministry of Education, because we should devise better mechanism of sending children to collect school fees. Alternatively, the world is modern. In the modern world, we have digital literacy, we have the phones, we have a way of communicating to the parents. And some schools have got the telephone number of the parents, we have email of the parents, we can directly communicate to the parents directly, other than getting this child to go home and get school fees. We have seen children who made problem along the way. There was a story that UBC aired, I remember, of a girl who was kidnapped on the way. There was another story of a girl who was defiled on the way. There was another story. There are too many stories when we allow the children to go, especially at odd hours. So sending children home, probably even when they are sick, you are referring. The nurse is there. There are people who accompany them. The school van, the school vehicle is there to accompany them. Where there are no school van, they go in groups or they are accompanied by the teachers or by the nurses. But in this circumstance, please, the school administrators, use the right channel. You can communicate direct to the parents. You can call them. All schools have got the telephone address of the parents, as well as the email in some schools. So really, that's why equally school administrators, they need to devise mechanism of handling children, mechanism of communicating, mechanism of getting to the parents without interrupting the learning process of the children and without endangering the lives of the children along the way.
Well, instead, I hope you've gotten your reply. Honorable, let me have your final remarks regarding term 2, now that term 1 was done.
I just want to take this opportunity once again to thank our parents. I want to take this opportunity to thank all stakeholders that have supported the education process, the development partners, because education is a shared responsibility. We involve everybody to play their own role. I want to thank you for the role you've played in first term that have led the school to be closed in a successful manner. Now that we are just a couple of weeks to reopen the second term, I once again call all of us, let's try to support the education sector, the parents, all stakeholders, to ensure the children get back to school. And to you, the school administrators, I want to say, let's be human. We are much aware there is already a problem in terms of rise in prices, commodities. Equally, the food that children are eating in schools does not come from blue. It comes from the garden, comes from the same market. So let's be fair enough to put something that is really, really human, charging the fees and the parent. And lastly, you, the teacher, thank you for getting back to the profession. And we pray that we stay in this together until we see these children to get competent and responsible citizens for this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Dr. Moriku Kaduchu Joyce, for having phone time this morning. She is the State Minister for Primary Education, Ministry of Education and Sports. And of course, thank you our viewers that have sent in questions and wherever you are and you've been watching us. Well, one final, we'll find ways of replying. She said, my question is, will the Ministry for State teachers who need to upgrade and also said concerning sending children for school fees, some parents are stubborn and they refuse to respond to school before sending their children home. Well, education is a right. Let's all create that conducive environment to ensure that our children learn and not only pass through school, but learn skills that equip them for the desires of the 21st century and the job market. Have a lovely day. We'll meet again in Good Morning Uganda Extra. God bless you.